When I was scrolling through TikTok the other day on my phone because TikTok is blocked on my state-issued device, I was met with an unusual image. A classic Van Gogh painting titled Sunflowers, except it was splattered with tomato soup. The culprits then glued their hands to the wall, and Phoebe Plummer asked, "What is worth more, art or life?" Completely confused, I scrolled a little bit further and found that the perpetrators behind this unexpected food fight were protesting the oil industry. This story had gone viral on social media, and the desecration of Van Gogh's masterpiece was picked up by the New York Times, NBC, Washington Post, and NPR. The public was outraged that these two protesters would destroy irreplaceable art for a completely unrelated fight. One post on Twitter by @SeanVids asks the question we're all thinking. I don't understand why climate protesters who feel passionately enough about the issue to break the law would throw soup on things that have nothing to do with climate change, rather than go break some oil industry equipment. The post received 16.1 thousand likes and 1,275 retweets, and the people were looking for an answer. Art has been utilized for protest for as long as art has been around. Sometimes the best way to get people to understand your cause is to show them, and in the case of Just Stop Oil, it was to deface priceless art. But this is certainly not the only example of art and protest crossing paths. So today, we will first lay down the canvas and discuss graffiti, the controversy around it, and the reason it is so widespread to this day. Second, we'll dip our brush into one of the most common and effective methods for persuasion, propaganda. Finally, we'll add the finishing touches and discuss modern protest art. On our journey, why not start with something that I'm sure we've all encountered before, especially on the passing train cars on the way to school? Graffiti. How did modern graffiti start, and why is it so popular today? The first form of modern graffiti actually only dates back to 1965. Let me paint you a picture. 12-year-old Daryl McRae is like any other kid, except for one thing. He was obsessed with cornbread. Yeah, you heard me right. Personally, I believe there's better breads out there. For this reason, staff at the Youth Development Center where Daryl lived nicknamed him Cornbread. Satisfied with his new nickname, he went around making sure that everybody had heard by spray painting his name on the walls of the development center, in the cafeteria, in the church, in the bathrooms, anywhere that wasn't already tagged with gang signs. It's an understatement to say that Cornbread pioneered graffiti art, and he's still alive today. He was just a kid having fun, but consequently created an art form that is everywhere in the modern day, especially to aid in protest, such as with the George Floyd case and the ongoing struggles in Ukraine. Even though graffiti is used to bring people together and to fuel change, many still believe that it is nothing more than simply vandalism. And big greedy corporations will simply have graffiti painted over not long after it goes up. Carolyn Choi, an author with Harvard Political Review, argues that graffiti doesn't deserve to be painted over and expresses a concern with racism. Artists of color, too, are publicly marking their judiciary, not just with shards of glass and setting properties ablaze, but with layers of paint over the corporate doors, intentionally targeting large chains that have infested their communities, elevating monthly rent, and bringing in waves of affluent white neighbors. The people are finally expressing themselves over the voices of transplants and greedy corporations. With spray paint and watercolor, they're using street art to remind gentrifiers that they exist, and they've existed long before white hipsters and big retail chains overran their districts. Even though the controversy around graffiti may never go away, it's important to understand who is truly affected when their one and only form of free speech is taken away. Contrastly, a situation in which free speech is still very much alive and thriving is with propaganda, which is usually a person or group slandering another person or group over some political dispute. Before big elections, during a war, and whenever there's a new topic of controversy, you'll see propaganda. If you need some examples, take this one. Keep calm and carry on. While you definitely know this poster, or you know a parody version of it, you might not have known where it originated. This poster was commissioned in 1939 from across the pond in Great Britain to boost morale during World War II. While not exactly protesting the war itself, the goal of the poster was to subdue tension and fighting among the public, as everybody was uncertain about what would happen next. Here we can see an original copy of the poster that has stood the test of time. Keep Calm and Carry On remains as a sort of slogan for Great Britain, and the subject of countless parodies. Here is another famous example: We Can Do It. While initially issued to motivate female factory workers during World War II, this poster had a resurgence in the 1980s during the women's liberation movement as a symbol for the power of womanhood. Feminists were able to flip the meaning of this poster on its head to be a message for good, and not a reminder of one of the worst events in history. The original muse for the poster, Naomi Parker Fraley, did an interview with People magazine in 2016. And here's the kicker: Fraley wasn't even credited when the poster was initially issued. She received no consignment from the man who painted her and nothing from the factories that put up her face. She stated, "I couldn't believe it because it was me in the photo, but there was somebody else's name in the caption. Geraldine. I was amazed. I just wanted my own identity. I didn't want fame or fortune, but I did want my own identity." Even though Fraley's story has come to a close, let's move to a form of protest art that is still very much in its infancy: meme culture. If there's one thing that all of us can relate to, it's memes. That's why whenever there's a new topic of controversy in the media, you'll see memes about it. This iconic image from the show SpongeBob SquarePants is often accompanied by text of inconsistent capitalization as a way to mock things that the person who posted it doesn't agree with. This one is directed at Republicans. Have you ever seen this image? This is protest. You could put anything in this space down here, post it online, and start a debate in the comment section. But let's go a little bit bigger. Possibly the most famous meme of all time, Pepe the Frog, was subject to rebranding for protest in 2016, and not necessarily for the better. Pepe was originally drawn for a comic book by Matt Fury in 2008, and 3 years later he was adopted by 4chan, a message board that was popular in the early 2000s. Pepe was the reaction face of the internet before emojis gained popularity in the Western world. His wide range of emotions was a perfect way to punctuate a 4chan post. But as happens with every celebrity eventually, and Kanye West recently, Pepe had his downfall. Certain images surfaced among the hype, depicting Pepe as a Nazi, a Klan member, and spouting racist, homophobic, and anti-Semitic phrases. People would simply tag a picture of Pepe alongside their hateful messages. The reason behind this was that racists, homophobes, and neo-Nazis wanted to spread their ideas in a light-hearted way to relate to the general public. In 2016, Pepe was placed on the Anti-Defamation League's list of hate symbols, alongside swastikas and the Confederate flag. Matt Fury, a notoriously non-confrontational person, was powerless to watch his creation turn into something else. So, he did the only thing he could think to do in that situation. He literally killed Pepe. In 2017, Matt Fury created a comic depicting Pepe at his funeral with all of his friends in attendance. But as you can imagine, this didn't stop the internet from doing what it does best. Pepe's distraught face speaks for itself. So today, we first laid down the canvas and discussed graffiti, the controversy around it, and the reason it is so widespread to this day. Second, we dipped our brush into one of the most common and effective methods for persuasion, propaganda. Finally, we added the finishing touches and discussed modern protest art, meme culture. Did you notice a running theme throughout all of these examples? Art was the key in shifting power. Phoebe Plummer gained the power of the public's attention by throwing soup on Van Gogh's piece. The mural artists and activists gained back control of their communities that were infested by white hipsters. Naomi Parker Fraley had to watch her likeness run off without her, only after it was too late to do anything about it. And Matt Fury no longer had power over his own comic book character, and couldn't stop the internet from turning it into a hate symbol. What we can learn from this is that art can be a powerful tool, but can also fall into the wrong hands easily. It can bring us together as a society, or it can tear us apart. But it all depends on how we use it. You know what they say, the pen, or paintbrush, stylus, or spray paint can is mightier than the sword.